I think we having a little school. It's
Well,
all
yeah,
right.
this class
That's all
today,
right.
this class today,
It's needed.
we really do. We really do. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. An urgent proactive follow-up of 3 areas. Number 1, silent complicity. Number 2, passive Black leaders and Black political bipolarism. Silent complicity on trial. The upcoming aiding and abetting trial of the other 3 officers who were present and who did nothing to stop the murder. The higher issue here is silent complicity. Proactive pressure must be applied. Proactive pressure must be applied. The legal fight is for harsh convictions and harsh sentences.
Absolutely, sister. I can't overemphasize this, this need to be proactive. We are going to have to, this is when you make a lot of noise, you know. See, white supremacy and police violence against unarmed Black people is a Black problem. But there are some white people who decided that they want to fight for that. Now, I don't expect anything from white people. And people might say, well, why are you having a show to pick on Black people? No, it's not a show to pick on Black people. I expect absolutely nothing from white people. Absolutely nothing. So whatever they do, but I expect, because I'm going by the history of this relationship, the history of us living in America and all the things that we've been through. When we make gains, and as soon as we make gains, here comes a backlash to try to reverse the gains. I expect absolutely nothing from white folks in America. So I understand that this particular show is marketed to Black people. So I'm speaking to Black, to a predominantly a pretty much 99.9% Black audience. So this is a class, so to speak, to help Black people learn or to understand the dynamics of what we're dealing with and to motivate us to the call of action. And this is where we apply our energy and action, being proactive, trying to fight for harsh convictions. Why? To make an example out of these 3 individuals.
Right, and that 99.9 rounds out at about 110%. I say, so Derek Chauvin was convicted and now awaits sentencing.
For those who are not familiar with the individuals in this trial, I just wanted to show that Derek Chauvin is the guy on your left.
The first guy.
You're the first guy.
The first guy.
The other 3 officers. And see, the other 3 officers are pathetic, you know, in terms of character and courage. They actually participated in the falsification of the police report. They turned in a police report to the captain, the Black captain or whatever he was, the chief. And the chief had no idea that this wasn't just a normal, they thought that George Floyd had died of health conditions. If it wasn't for Darnella, I can't understate how much respect and reverence I have for Darnella Frazier. Darnella Frazier is a voice and a name that Black people should be shouting to the sky, because Keith Ellison is the size of a pea compared to Darnella Frazier. Darnella Frazier is the reason why all of this took place.
This or is anything that took place. It.
She's the reason for it. She's the one that recorded it.
I say.
And the quality of her recording gave us a chance at justice. Slim be it that, but a chance at justice. But not only that, these guys would have got away with filing a false police report. They wouldn't be in jail today if it wasn't for this beautiful 17-year-old Black girl, Black woman. Salute. And we need to honor and praise this young lady, because this is the kind of thing we need to encourage. We need to encourage this. And when you praise and celebrate folks that do things right, by the same token, you are encouraging that behavior to be repeated by others.
Ashe. You know what's interesting about this picture? So
Mhm.
you got Derek Chauvin, you got this guy who appears to be some type of an Asian, and then you have a regular white guy, and then this other young man on the end here. I'm not too sure about him, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess
not.
I guess I'm bringing that up because they seem like they're a mixture of ethical
Ethnicities.
groups.
And that just goes to
So
show you.
I'm wondering if they're going to try to play on that as they often do.
Well, they're going to be tried together, from my understanding. They're going to be tried together. And so, we talked about indoctrination. We talked about, buying into the mindset of what America is. See, if these individuals see themselves as Americans, then they see themselves uh, essentially as white, because the values,
Absolutely.
the culture, the religion, everything is European. If they in fact embrace that, I
I
think the
say.
brother on the right, I don't know if he's obviously has some African in his blood, but I don't know if he's Arab, claiming a mixture of one of those ethnicities. I'm not sure.
Yes. Do we have any idea, Baba Seba, of what his name is, this guy on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end?
we have their names. We have their names. Um, Actually, the Asian guy name is Tao Theo.
Okay. That pretty
Uh,
much speaks for itself.
I think the black looking guy, I believe his name is Thomas Lane.
Thomas Lane.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could be mistaken on that, but I believe that's correct. And then the other white guy, I think his name is Alexander Quang or something like, or Kang.
Yeah, Thomas
Queen.
may have a black and white parent or some sorts.
Could be, could be. Let's go to the next slide.
I expect absolutely nothing from white folks. Killer cops shooting unarmed black people is a black problem that we must solve.
Okay. When I say that, I say that because too often black people think that this thing cannot be fixed unless white folks get in here and make this happen. Until we grow up as men and women. See, all of our problems, these problems are made by human beings. This is a human problem. Whatever a human being does to a people, that thing can be undone to a people. If a human being did it and you're a human being, why don't you believe in your capability to undo it? Like, let me give you an example. Keith Ellison, as a prosecutor, he didn't believe that he could get a conviction for first degree. Then you shouldn't have been a prosecutor. You don't even believe in yourself.
Teach.
To deliver justice. That's the first requirement for that position, is you got to believe in your own abilities. You already have an inferiority complex. You are already surrendering to white supremacy. You
Look
didn't
at
even
that.
believe in yourself to try to convict him on the crime that he actually committed, first degree murder. We witnessed a first degree murder, but because he didn't believe he can get it, because he failed to believe in himself,
Teach.
he settled for a second degree because he believed more in the power of white supremacy than he do in the power of his own ability to persuade the public.
Break that foolishness up, Baba Seba. Ashe. Who and what is Keith Ellison? Keith Ellison is a problem. Keith Ellison is an Keith
Archetype.
Ellison is an archetype problem for committee for black people. It's not just him. He represents a whole category of passive black leaders. Wittedly or unwittingly, passive black leaders serve the interests of white supremacy. Keith Ellison's Minnesota's Attorney General and lead prosecutor in the Derek Chauvin trial sat down for an interview on 60 Minutes. He made the jaw-dropping statement that the murder of George Floyd was not a hate crime.
Hold it. Hold it right there. Brothers and sisters, how can you be Black and live in America? In that statement not totally insult you? How can this man utter from his mouth the absolute obvious nature of that crime? You know, sometimes, you know, what I noticed in this particular scenario, the Derek Chauvin, the chief was a Black man. The chief is a Black man. Sometimes these frustrated racists, they can't stand Black supervisors. You know, if you know, folks that know those racists that's on their job cannot stand to be led by a Black supervisor. You know, I remember I used to have a white employee, and he was very experienced. He was actually older than me. And whenever I would go to order some supplies or leave the job site for any reason, now you working for me, he would jokingly utter out statements like Cadillac contractor, you know, and things of this nature, because what was eating him inside is that a Black man was his supervisor, or a Black man was his employer, that a Black man was his boss. You know, I used to work for a company where a superintendent and myself set up a trailer and prepared to do a development on a Snooks, a total addition on his Snooks. And we both worked for a Black contractor at the time. He was a supervisor under this Black contractor. The Black contractor said nobody in this country, in this company, will work on Martin Luther King's birthday. Nobody. This white employee who was a supervisor, he didn't understand. He was like, I don't see why we can't work if we want to. We got a lot of work to get. And I was so happy to say, because you work for a Black company right now, nobody works.
Nobody.
That's what the Black man said, so you have to do it. You know, I felt so good telling that, because it was a part of him that always felt he was better than the company owner, because the company owner was a Black man. But go ahead, sister.
The interviewer stated following Ellison's cowardly answers, the whole world sees this as a white officer killing a Black man because he is Black.
Now, hold on right there. This interviewer, which was a white man, showed more courage in his question than Keith Ellison showed in his answer. This is pathetic. You know, I call it passive Black leadership. This same thing happened to Andy Young. I remember when I was a young man, I used to really admire Andrew Young, until when he was appointed the position of ambassador to South Africa under the Jimmy Carter administration. And he went to South Africa. And when he was among those people who were struggling with apartheid, the real Andrew Young came out, and he sympathized with his Black brothers and sisters over in South Africa. And he made the statement that there are political prisoners, there are Black political prisoners in America too, you know, because they were talking about Nelson Mandela. At the time, Nelson Mandela was incarcerated. And he made a statement, he said, I feel for you, because there's Black political prisoners in America, in the United States of America too. And when he said that, Jimmy Carter was totally upset. It made the headlines around the world that Andrew Young, the ambassador for the United States to South Africa, said that there are Black political prisoners in the United States. And Jimmy Carter was so upset, he reprimanded this man in public. And then Andrew Young came out in public and apologized. He literally, I was about 18 years old. This man apologized for telling the truth. Passive. Now, who did that benefit? See, here's a policy. it benefited white supremacy. Passive Black leaders served the interests of white supremacy. Go ahead, sister.
Because Andrew could have stood on that.
He could have stood. So then I learned who he was at that time. He defined himself. He had the courage of a Pete. When I at one time I believe he was a great man, but he showed us who he was, just as Keith Ellison has.
Keith Ellison stated prior to the interviewer's comment regarding the brutal murder of George Floyd, "We don't have any evidence that Derek Chauvin factored in race."
Unbelievable statement.
Wow.
Wait, we have no evidence that he factored in race. You know, I mentioned about the frustration of a white supremacist working for a Black man. He couldn't do nothing to his boss. But as he had his knee on his neck, all he could think about is that Black boss he has to answer to every day. So that knee stayed on his neck because he didn't have the power to do anything to his Black boss, but he could do something to this Black man who he had ultimate power of life and death over. And he left his knee on his neck after enormous pleas from people around him that you're going to kill him, let him go. This man was merciless, relaxed with a hand in his pocket, in total defiance that I'm going to kill this nigger today, and then lied on a police report.
But we don't have any evidence that factored in race.
Only a passive Black leader would say such a thing.
Ellison also stated in the interview that as a career defense attorney, he feels sorry for Derek Chauvin.
Now that was a dagger in the heart to the Black community. Number one, as a defense attorney, which that was the majority of his career, this time he was in a position as a prosecutor, but as a defense attorney, he's relating to Derek Chauvin? Your job as a prosecutor, now visualizing yourself as a defense attorney, your mind should have been on George Floyd, who was dead and had nobody who could represent him. You should have been thinking about, I'm the defense attorney for George Floyd. That's where your heart should have been. That's where your compassion should have been. You disrespected that man's family by saying on national TV that you felt sorry for Derek Chauvin just because you were a defense attorney. Your spirit as a defense attorney your heart should have been with George Floyd and his family. So that was a slap in the face of his family, and it was a slap in the face of Black empowerment. It was a slap in the face of the whole Black community. And if you're talking about accountability, you need to be accountable for slapping us in the face with that disrespect. You need to be accountable, Keith Ellison. And I don't hate the brother, because he's not alone. He's an archetype problem for us. But we are spinning our wheels in terms of uplifting and making progress as a people on a global level, because these are the things that people are not aware of, because we fall under the spell of these political games that are played on us each and every day of our lives.
Ashe. First Mohawk Conference on the Negro question. The first Mohawk Conference on the Negro question. Political
sellout. About that.
Okay.
Let me say something about it.
Okay.
These white men got together in New York at some rich estate and put together a conference on the Negro question. Now, this is in 1890. And they were trying to figure out, since they're not our slaves anymore, what kind of Black people do we need to create? Because through education, you shape minds, you shape personality, you shape interests. Not one Black person, and there were Black leaders at that time, not one Black person was invited to this conference as they sat there and tried to design an educational process that would shape and mold the Black people of this country. Go ahead, sister.
Okay, hold on. I'm not sure. I lost the screen share.
You want me to reshare it? It's still up on my end.
Yeah, I don't see it at all. Hold on for a second.
Just go back to your Zoom. You'd have a Zoom tab at the bottom.
Hmm.
You want me to come out and put it back?
Yes. Give us a minute, family.
You see me?
I do. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not sure what happened.
I'm gonna share the screen again.
Okay, do I?
You see it?
Okay, thank you. Do I? Political sellouts, passive Black leaders, and Black political bipolarism. Now, Baba Seba, I don't see you on the screen anymore like I see myself.
Can you see the rest of the words?
I do, but I'm trying to see how I can get you back on here. There you go. I got it. Okay, all speak to the shaping of Black leadership as laid out by the education plan established 1890 at a 3-day conference at Lake Mohawk, Ulster County, New York. Among the opening remarks of the conference, it reads, I had to move this down.
Before you read it, I'm just gonna give a little
Okay.
back information on this. At this conference was held by quote unquote white liberals. We talked about recently in the news there was people talking about America's not a racist country. You know, the abolitionist movement, which we read about so much in our history books, was really only about a 22-year movement in its real power, and it had some legs. You're talking about from 1855 to like 1877. Whatever amount of years that is. And they were considered extremists. Now, you say America is not a racist country, but for somebody to say that Black people should not be slaves, those people were considered extremists at that time. I meant I would have put an article up so that you can see that. But at this particular conference, Rutherford B. Hayes, which was an ex-president, was invited to chair this conference. And Rutherford B. Hayes' candidacy in and of itself was controlled by a shadow, what I was saying. They made a deal. See, because what happened was Rutherford B. Hayes actually won the popular vote, but lost the electoral vote. And so they had a problem. Usually whoever wins the electoral vote is the president. But the North and the South sat down, the congressmen from the North and the South sat down in a room and made a deal, in a closed door deal, not on a congressional floor, but in a room. They made a deal. And they and after the doors opened, they had an agreement that we would make Rutherford B. Hayes the president if the North agreed to withdraw the troops from the South who were protecting Black people after the Civil War, or after the Emancipation Proclamation, or after we so-called had our newfound freedom. We had troops in the South protecting us from white racists. So the agreement was to pull the troops out of the South and to build the South a railroad, to stretch from the east to the west. They didn't have one. That's why they lost the war. Because Lincoln could reinforce his supplies because he had a railroad that stretched all the way across the country, and he could supply his troops as needed. So when Rutherford B. Hayes became president, we took a big L as a people, because the Ku Klux Klan established himself and lynching went off the charts. We were vulnerable to white supremacy. Now, this man was and who was supposed to be a liberal. He chaired this meeting, and you're reading some of his words.
I believe if they are not so educated that they will become a dangerous element to the community, liable to be thrown at any moment into the hands of the demagogues who may use them for bad purposes. I believe that our only safety is to give the Negro a Christian education. I'm gonna read that again.
Brothers, yeah, please repeat that.
Let me read it and then I'm gonna let you talk about it.
No, you can read it.
I believe that our only safety is to give the Negro a Christian education.
See, brothers and sisters, stop running from the truth. Christianity has been used as a tool to create a passive nature in Black people. All of this took place after the Haitian Rebellion. The Haitian Rebellion took place in 1804. Haiti was liberated. Haiti was liberated by people who embraced Black empowerment. So white supremacy did not want another Haiti to take place here in the United States. So they knew that it was important to create an education that would pacify the nature of Black people.
That's deep.
They had no better tool than the Christian doctrine.
Now, I don't know why every Christian in the entire world would not be upset about that. That's deep. That is deep. This is what we are called together to consider. Mind you, there were no Black leaders invited to the conference. Let me read that again. Mind you, there were no Black leaders invited to the conference. Let me pull this out the way so I could. Below are the words of the former US president and so-called staunch abolitionist who was selected to chair the first Mohawk conference. In the southern states are 7 million of colored people, of whom probably 1/2 are unable to read and write, and illiteracy in their case, we are told, mean far more than ignorance of letters. It means a condition according to a high authority, compounded of ignorance, superstition, shiftlessness, vulgarity, and vice.
And now check this out. Now this is the ex-president of the United States. This is an abolitionist. This is supposed to be a liberal. Now this is how he sees Black people. Now these are the people who are shaping the education for the future of Black people. This is how their minds work. This is the mind of the people. This is the man who chaired the meeting. This is the most powerful man in the conference. This is the way his mind worked. He was saying not only are they ignorant of reading and writing, he was saying their ignorance go beyond the ignorance of reading and writing. He was saying we're morally ignorant. This is the way he thought of Black people. Go ahead, sister.
There may be gross exaggerations in the tales we hear of the voodoo paganism. Let me say something there. Gross exaggeration, voodoo paganism. Now, mind you, this man was the president of the United States. He knows the history of the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution, voodoo was their spirituality. See, they had an African spiritual system that gave them the inner power to rise up and gave them the mindset. They had an African spiritual system that made rebels and freedom fighters out of those people. He's aware of that. And see, this is what he's trying to eloquently misrepresent. He wanted to call it voodoo paganism because he's trying to demean the spiritual system, because this spiritual system represents an enemy to his own. And so he has to demonize it. Who is this former U.S. president at the time, Baba Seba?
Huh?
Do we know who this former U.S. president is?
Yeah. This is Rutherford B. Hayes is the one that I mentioned earlier. Rutherford B. Hayes, he was the one that became president in 1877, but his term was over, and this is like 1890. He's chairing his conference. So this is guy supposed to be, I mean, this guy was in Congress. This guy was, I think, the governor of Ohio. This was a main political figure. And this is how he felt about black people. But yet, these folks say America is not a racist country. This is how a liberal felt about us. Imagine the conservatives wanted to hang us by a tree. Go ahead.
Which under the name of religion lurks, if it does not prevail in the cotton and cane growing districts of the South, known as the Black Belt, there is, however, enough of truth in these statements to call for investigation and action. One of the devoted friends of the colored people tells us that their ignorance, indifference, indolence.
Yep, indolence.
Shiftlessness, again, shiftlessness, superstition, and low tone of morality are
prodigious
hindrances to the development of the great low country where they swarm. It is perhaps safe to conclude that half of the colored population of the South still lack the thrift, the education, the morality, and the religion required to make a prosperous and intelligent citizen. Wow.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, you mean to tell me you value an education that was given to you by people with this in their mind in terms of how they feel about you? I mean, this is a no-brainer. These people are white supremacists.
To the bone.
And they had in their hands, they were in a power position to shape and mold the future minds of black people.
These are the kind of men who shaped the Negro education to subdue, control, and produce the kind of black leaders we still have today. And the sad irony is that they represent the liberal side of white supremacy. Thus, we have our political sellouts, i.e. a Tim Scott, who said recently that America is not a racist country, i.e. a James Claiborne, majority whip in the Congress, a passive black leader who recently said America is not a racist country. And the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, also said America is not a racist country. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, also said America is not a racist country. Again, passive black leadership.
Remember at the beginning, let me say this. At the beginning of this video or the screen sharing, I said that one of the components of white supremacy that makes the machine run is the falsification of reality. Now, what black person or even white person that ain't lying would say that America is not a racist country?
Not even
unbelievable. It's unbelievable how these passive black leaders can say this with impunity from the black community. There's not enough backlash. There's not enough pressure. See, we're in control of the pressure. You can make it extremely uncomfortable for people when they say these kind of things. If you would let your energy and let your voice be heard whenever these people disrespect us with comments like this.
Right. Because all you got to do is just say one word, explain.
Videos like this should be coming from all over the country whenever they slip up and say things like this.
Ashe. All three politicians play a critical role in maintaining white supremacy. All three are participating in the falsification of reality. White supremacy will lie, must lie, and cannot breathe without lying. Greater is the sin when you lie for your enemies. However, justice is not blind. It would ultimately see its way to make you pay. Ashe.
Now, again, we don't hate these people. You know, me and Metu used to say together that within every Negro lies the potential to be a black man or a black woman. I mean, they just need to come off that foolishness. You working for the interests of white supremacy, you need to work for the interests of Black liberation. You need to work for the interests of Black empowerment. You can't do both. And I know you standing there with Black skin. Stand up for your people and do the right thing and speak the right way. Show us some respect. Show us that Black lives matter. See, because you showing us that white lives matter. You showing us that white supremacy matter to you, because you can disrespect Black people and then turn around and then slew the slogan, Black lives matter. How dare you speak those words? And then you say publicly that America is not a racist country. Shame on you.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Baba Seba, go back to that picture, Baba Seba.
Okay.
For me, please. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm not wrong, but I think I'm right, all three of these quote unquote African Americans are married to white folk, correct?
I'm not sure about James Claiborne. I'm not sure about him.
I'm gonna see if I can look him up. I know the one on the left and in the middle, definitely.
Yeah, the one on the left, he's a political sellout. He's definitely on Team White.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna look
that.
up James Claiborne's.
Yeah, this guy, Tim Scott, is the only Republican senator in Congress. And he makes no bones about it. He represents white interests, hands down. So, I already see him as a casualty of war. The war is being waged against Black people. I just look at that guy, Tim Scott, as a casualty in that war. I've written him off. He doesn't even count in terms of us trying to uplift and move our people forward.
Is James Claiborne, is that Claiborne?
Clyburn, James Clyburn.
Oh, Clyburn, okay.
Yeah. He's a majority whip.
All right, Ashe.
Oh, I'm going back the wrong way.
These are the kind of...
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going the wrong way. There we go.
Passive Black leadership will lie to the people to maintain the status quo of white supremacy. This has got to stop. Founded and developed on the institution of slavery, America was racist before it even had a constitution. The Comprehensive Negro Act of 1740, the act made it illegal for enslaved Africans to move abroad, assemble in groups, raise food, earn money, and learn to write. Additionally, owners were permitted to kill rebellious slaves if necessary. The act remained in effect until 1865.
Now you're talking about 1740 when this act was implemented. This wasn't even the United States celebrates its birthday in 1776. This is before it even became an official country. So how in the world can you say that America is not a racist country when it was founded on racism toward Black people? And that's what we were talking about, because they were responding to the George Floyd trial. They was responding to it, and they literally made this falsification of reality, and they comfortably told the people a lie. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable.
Black political bipolarism is another schism that is paralyzing our progress as an African people. This too must stop. Classic example: Johnny Robinson, 16, and Virgil Ware, 13, were both killed in racial violence in the Birmingham, Alabama area on September the 15th of 1963. The day a bomb killed 4 girls at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. Following the bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, Robinson and several others were allegedly throwing rocks at a car draped with the Confederate flag. A Birmingham police officer, Jack Parker, who was riding in the back seat of a police car, shot and killed Robinson. Virgil Ware, age 13, was shot in the cheek and chest with a revolver. A 16-year-old white youth fired the gun and killed Virgil Ware. Dr. Martin Luther...
Before you get to that part,
okay.
I wanted to mention something about Black boys. Now, they was responding to the bombing of 4 little girls. Where were the Black men? See, fear is a part of white supremacy. Black boys were so upset. They stood out and they took to the streets and couldn't do nothing but throw rocks But at least they felt they had to retaliate in some way for this heinous crime against their peers. Which is it just speaks to how black men, brother, that's embarrassing. That's shameful that you wasn't tearing up Alabama. Folks criticize me for saying unrest ain't cool. Unrest is cool when there's injustice. I'm gonna put it on. I don't have a problem with unrest. If you got a problem with unrest, stop committing injustice. Don't tell me how to respond once you slap me in the face. Don't slap me in the face if you don't want me to knock your teeth out.
I say.
Go ahead, sister.
Dr. Martin Luther King delivered a funeral address for 3 of the little girls killed in the bombing. A separate service was held for the 4th victim.
Okay. The reason why a separate service was held for the 4th little girl, because her mother was tipped off of what was going to happen during the funeral, the speeches. They was going to tell black people to calm down. She was aware of that, and she didn't want to have no parts of that. So she decided to have her funeral separate from them, because
say that again, Baba Seba.
That the mother of the 4th victim did not want her daughter to be a part of that funeral. 3 of the girls had the funeral together. The 4th mother heard that leaders were going to come in to calm down the community and get them to be passive and not to respond, in a radical way against the murder of these children. And she didn't want no parts of that.
Their mother wasn't having it.
She wasn't having it. So we have our own, now. Now, with this said, Dr. King, that's why I say black political bipolarism. Black political bipolarism. That's very important, because when you I have made some notes about it. Dr. King is an eloquent speaker. He's one of the most courageous black men we ever produced. But sadly, this political black polarism, this is a schism that on Monday, he's strong, on Tuesday, he's weak. These are the things that we have to tolerate because of this schism. So the schism is a problem. And I just wanted to put that down before you read the rest of what Dr. King said when he was eulogizing the 3 young ladies.
Out of the powerfully beautiful words that he spoke, these are some of the other words that Dr. King spoke. They say to each of us, black and white alike, that we must substitute courage for conscience. They say to us that we must be concerned not merely about who murdered them, but about the system, the way of life, the philosophy which produced the murderers. Later in the speech, Dr. King goes on to further say, and so I stand here to say this afternoon to all assembled here, that in spite of the darkness of this hour, yea, well, we must not despair. Yea, well, we must not become bitter. Yea, that's right. Nor must we harbor the desire to retaliate with violence. No, we must not lose faith in our white brothers. Yea.
Now, hold it right. Now, mind you, these vicious subhuman beasts just bombed a church and killed 4 little girls. And this is what many people believe he was sent to do. He had a powerful, if you were to read this speech, it is one of the most heartwarming, emotional, beautifully, most eloquent speeches this man has ever given. But he had to put in this speech. This is the part of the speech that gives instruction. And the instruction that he gave benefits white supremacy. See, it's in the interest of white supremacy that there be no retaliation and violence. It's in the interest of white supremacy that you don't lose faith in white folks. The Mohawk Conference educated black people. We need black people to maintain and embrace that education that the Mohawk Conference gave us. This is what he's essentially saying. See, there's a bipolarism, schism is at play in many of our leaders. It was in W.E.B. Du Bois, the way he, went against Marcus Garvey when he was trying to rise up, but later realized he was wrong. We've seen it. I've even seen it as recent as in Louis Farrakhan when he did the anniversary of the Million Man March, when he said that leading up to the march, he was creating a groundswell, going city to city, giving speeches. He literally was saying, I'm looking for 10,000 Black men who are willing to kill and willing to die. That was a very revolutionary thing for him to say. It implied that he was tired of Black people getting shot down by unarmed Black people being murdered by police. He said, I'm looking for 10,000 Black men that's willing to kill and willing to die. This is what he said leading up to the second 20-year anniversary of the Million Man March. But when he got there, he dialed it back. Political bipolarism. Monday, political bipolarism. On Monday, you stand up for Black liberation on Monday, but bow down to white supremacy on Tuesday. Courageous on Monday and cowardice on Tuesday. Black and strong on Monday, yellow and weak on Tuesday. Fighting for the liberation of Black people on Monday, but capitulating to white supremacy on Tuesday. Go ahead, sister.
I stand corrected. I looked James Claiborne's wife up, and she actually is an African American.
I thought so.
Ashe. Somehow we must believe that the most misguided among them can learn to respect the dignity and the worth of all human personality.
Wait a minute, folks. Now, remember, this is Dr. King talking. Go ahead.
This is a classic case of Black political bipolarism. This has to stop. That's deep. Black empowerment is also a machine. We need to proactively pressure. We need to proactively pressure and promote the nomenclature of its functions. Embrace an African spiritual system. Embrace an African spiritual system. Disable silent complicity.
Hold up. I'm going to say something about when you are a free people and you want to compete on the world stage, everybody else who's competing, they have their own language, they have their own religion, they have their own culture, they have their own values. How in the world are you going to be an adversary in the competition when you're speaking your enemy's language? That's why we feel it's very important to embrace an African language. I encourage us as a people to embrace Swahili, which is a language that is spoken by many peoples on the continent. And some people are even learning how to speak it in South America. And I also encourage the learning of Meduneta, which is our sacred language. Meduneta is the first written language the world has ever known. The first written language that the world has ever known was created by Black people. That's why it is sacred to us. That's why we are taking the time to try to recapture and learn this language. Because if you want to be a player in the world, if you want to be an actor on the world stage, well, damn it, get your own language, get your own religion, get your own culture. Everything you got should be Black.
Yes.
White people don't speak an African language. Chinese people don't speak African languages. They have their own language. That's a self-esteem issue, brothers and sisters.
Know thyself.
Apologize for getting upset, but go right ahead.
That's all right, Baba Seba. Embrace an African spiritual system. Disable silent complicity. Celebrate Black courage. Fight for justice. Strive for Black excellence. Embrace Pan-Africanism. Support Black businesses. Support Black family. Support Black marriage. Stand up for Black manhood. Stand up for Black womanhood. Let me add, stand up for our Black babies.
That's right.
Stand up for our Black children. When we do these things, power will not be at our fingertips. Power will ultimately be in the palms of our hands. Ashe.
Ashe. I'm going to end the slide there, and as I know it's getting close to time to wrap up.
Very powerful, Baba Seba. Just a grand lesson that needed to be had. Dua.
Well, I want to say in closing, it is important for us to celebrate our own Black heroes and sheroes. I think it's important for us to, again, to recognize Darnella Frazier and hold her high. You know, just as white folks recognize their soldiers and heroes, when you talk about the subject of police brutality and the murder of innocent, unarmed Black people by killer cops, you know, Gavin Long and Micah Johnson were soldiers against that cause, or soldiers in that cause. They literally shot police officers. But see, Black people are so afraid to mention their name. That's a part of the fear. There's somebody, I mean, these guys didn't go out and kill a white cop just for the sake of killing a white cop. They were doing it as a form of protest against the murder of unarmed Black people.
Uh-oh.
It was in 2016.
White discomfort. That was our first Voices of Maat with Seba Metu.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ashe.
So Gavin Long and Micah Johnson should not be forgotten by us. They gave their life because they were killed, but they gave their life to end police brutality. They took action. You know, they took everybody don't have to do the same thing. They took action, but their heart was in the right place. Their desire was to bring an end to this injustice. And so they took up arms. They were trained by the United States government, and then they used their training against a government or against a police department who had been murdering unarmed Black folks. So we sit around like we're ashamed to honor somebody who were trying to make a difference in bringing a solution. I think we need to, think about, Stacey Abrams, who was tireless. We might not believe and agree with her stake in the system, but this lady is a voting rights activist who actually made a difference. That Joe Biden would be sitting in the White House if it wasn't for Stacey Abrams and her leadership. We're talking about powerful Black people. We just need to encourage these Black people through our pressure points to stay on the right track, to stop falsifying reality with lies to please your slave masters. We need to just stay on them and make them better people, because, like I say, they are our people, and they have qualities that are valuable. So I want to encourage us to be strong. I want us to be smart. I want us to learn how to analyze the things that are put in front of us. I want us to stay together, be strong, and love your own people and fight for Team Black, because whether you like it or not, war has been waged against Black people.
Ashe. Dua so much, Baba Seba. I think that was a very interesting and edifying show that you came to enlighten us about. So I'm going to go ahead and say my normal thank yous. I want to say, of course, dua to our Baba Seba, Amari Sneferu of the founder of the Temple of Kitiheru.